Well, I'm pretty sure by the time you get to watch this, you've witnessed the war of words online between Julius Malema and Elon Musk. And when Elon Musk is calling for the sanction of Julius Malema and have him declared an international criminal, Julius Malema seems not to care, because he says if defending black people is what will get him called or termed an international criminal, he definitely does not care. But you might be wondering, where did this all start? Well, it started when Elon Musk shared a video, an old video of Julius Malema calling for the slitting of throat of whiteness. Now, I need you guys to mark this word, whiteness, not white. And people are saying this is actually metaphorical, but the way Elon shared this particular message, he misinformed people. There was a lot of disinformation in this particular statement because he did not say this is metaphorical. And I'm going to play you this video so that we can be able to listen together, and you guys can also share on the comment section what you think about this statement before we talk about the land injustices in Africa and why this is always a triggering point or a triggering conversation for us to have here in the continent. So let's watch this together.
The mayor of DA in PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness.
So you can clearly hear what Malema is saying. He's saying, you know, we are slitting the throat of whiteness. As I was saying, people actually said this is very metaphorical. But Elon shared that, and then he went ahead to share another clip, another former clip of Julius Malema with his crowd, where they are cheering to this particular song that the statements have been questioned before. Kill the Boer, kill the farmer. So let's play that video as well, and then get an explainer to what that song actually means when we are talking about South Africa.
Shoot to kill the mother, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. Attention.
So you can see there, this is actually a huge crowd. We are looking at hundreds of thousands of people cheering him on when he utters these particular statements, which have been termed as insensitive before. But for you to be able to understand the context of that statement, I went ahead and found a very good explanation to what that means. And I want us to be, today we're going to have to watch a lot of videos so that by the time we are summarizing this whole reaction, we know what we are dealing with. So let's watch this together and get to understand what does the term kill the Boer, kill the farmer mean in South Africa.
What did Malema mean by singing that song?
Yes, he was quoting a liberation chant, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. I myself, as a white liberation fighter, formerly in the ANC and of Umkhonto weSizwe, often sang that song. And I understood very clearly that it was not directed at individual whites. It was directed against a system which today is still very much in place. And that was exactly the interpretation of the Equality Court. When Malema was taken to the Equality Court in South Africa ruled in favor of him and said, no, this is not hate speech. We understand the historical context where it comes from. And he explained it himself several times. But here you've got a white reactionary response from the Democratic Alliance, trying to mobilize white people in South Africa on the most base fears that they can possibly whip up. And this is the ridiculous fear that there is a project in South Africa to kill white people. It is not true. But certainly, there must be a campaign in South Africa to fight against white monopoly capitalism and to bring about radical economic transformation. And my party can associate it with the economic freedom fighters and, as I've said, other progressive parties to achieve that objective.
So a very good explanation there, where this person says that this is actually a liberation chant. If we go back to history, this is something that has been done across South Africa. And one of the things that actually you have to realize is Malema was sued for this particular chant. And obviously they went to court, and the court declared this as no hate speech. So people are actually wondering, why would Elon Musk share those details and not also share the observation or the ruling of a court of law that says, you know what, we understand how this comes across, but this is no hate speech. And obviously we have had our own independent songs, we've had our own, you know, liberations. People actually have done a lot of things in the African culture. So even when the court rules this as no hate speech and says we understand the root of this chant, right? And then for someone like Elon Musk to go ahead and not share these details comprehensively, then it appears that he has an agenda. I'm going to play you a clip where we get to actually see Malema's stand on white people, where he clearly expresses that he has no problem with white people. He does not hate white people, but what he hates, it's the privilege that comes with that whiteness, right? But before that, you might be asking yourself, where are all these things coming from? Where is Elon Musk coming from? Why does he have the need to bring up these clips right now? Well, if you remember, there was a land expropriation bill that was signed into law just 2 weeks ago in South Africa. And what this particular says is that if I'm going to try to paraphrase this and summarize, but all the details are there about this particular law. If there is any land that has been left unattended to, it's not being used, then the government, in matter of public interest, can be able to take that and develop it without compensating you. So we are going to take this because it's idle. We are not going to compensate you for that particular land. And that's just pretty much it, right? But we put a stop at that, because we will later touch on it, because this is something that is actually happening across Africa. But as we summarize with this whole Malema issues, let's play a video and get to understand what is his stand when it comes to white people. Does he hate white people? Does he not? Or what exactly does he feel about white people? And this is also one of the clips that people were like, why did Elon not share this particular clip as well? Because he clearly states and he clearly says, this is my position when it comes to this matter. So let's play this.
White farmers must stay in South Africa, but I won't beg them. I won't be on my knees begging white farmers to stay in South Africa. But they must stay. If they want to stay, they are more than welcome. Like all South Africans, there's nothing special about them. Nothing. To ask me about, do I see value in the white farmers in South Africa, is to ask me about white privilege. I'm not going to glorify it. I see value in all South Africans. White, black, Indian, colors. All of us. I value you. I want you to contribute in the growth of the economy. There's nothing special about white farmers. There's nothing special about white people. The sooner we do that, away with that mentality, the better. I have no problem with white people at all. I have a problem with them being treated special. I have a problem with privilege. That's my problem. That when I say something, it's wrong. But when it gets to be said by a white person, it's right. I complained about Indians and how they are treating our people. The same way an Indian former constitutional court judge says, when it is said by an Indian judge, it's not a problem. When it is said, because they've got a special place in heaven and we are all going to hell. I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. That when things are said by certain people of a different color, they are understood. But when I say them, or Dali says them, or any African says them, they are said by an African child who comes from a poor family, a child of a domestic worker. Who's he to tell us?
So I'm gonna pin the complete video of this because it's an 8 minutes video, so I could try and actually pin this there on the comment section so that you can also get the details, but you get the gist of it, right? So what he is fighting against, it's the privilege and the fact that whenever an African says something, you know, it's never taken seriously. But then we have to ask ourselves, whose problem is that Africans don't get listened to? Is it a white person's problem, or it's actually a black man's problem, right? So you can see, obviously they went back and forth. Elon went back and forth with this conversation. Obviously Malema had a reply for him, and I'm gonna quickly read you what Malema said in regards to this particular, to Elon sharing these particular videos. And also there is a whole EFF statement on Elon Musk. But let me quickly read you what Malema's reply to this was. And he said to Elon, "I really think you have entirely lost your left brain, a typical spoiled brat and directly beneficiary of apartheid whiteness. I know black people look the same to you, typical racist. Look closer and you will realize those are two different people. America is exposing us to its stupidity. I don't care about your sanctions. I will never stop fighting for black people to be equal to white people. And if that makes me an international criminal, I am proud to be one," right? So you have this exchange of tweets coming from different directions. And something also caught my attention, and this is Eddie Mahembe, and he says, "If this continues, Africa unity will be achieved in our lifetime. Trump and Musk could be the gift Africa has been waiting for. The new battle cry is now Africa unite." And then you might be wondering, why is Trump being mentioned in all this? As we said, there is a new land expropriation act in South Africa, and Trump said actually, if Afrikaners are displaced from their land, he's willing to help and he's willing to come through. There's been a lot of tension between America and South Africa, and we can, you know, if you remember, South Africa joined BRICS, so obviously this did not sit well with America, or it did not sit well with the government, right? South Africa is anti-Israel. Well, we have a lot of people who are pro-Israel and their battle in Palestine. South Africa put its foot down, and it says, by the way, the whole version Israel is trying to feed people about their attack in Palestine is they are not for it. They will not stand for it. So you can see like three key things that are bringing on the friction between South Africa and America. They seem to stand for three different things. They say, we will take the land and we will not compensate you. Trump goes and says, well, do that. We will take care of them, right? We will give them, you know, refugee status. We will accommodate them. We will do ABCD. You see South Africa joining BRICS. Obviously, this is a move that is bound to annoy the global north. You see South Africa calling out Israel at this particular moment. You understand Israel is untouchable. So you have a whole country in Africa not doing things the normal way or the ways that we've been used to. But then there was a question about, if this happens in South Africa, what could potentially become of that country? And someone said, if all the white farmers disappeared, all these blacks will starve. It's exactly what recent history shows, but they are doing it again. I found this tweet to be a bit sensitive, because what do you mean? All the blacks will starve? And it was also supported by a person, username Twisted Poet, who said, and we should let them evacuate all the Boer to America, and I mean all. The new apartheid, no white person left behind. Confiscate the farmland from China and Gates and give farms to people that will farm it. Leave the entire continent of Africa to the Africans, and they can Africa their way, communist way, into death and starvation. And when they are gone, the white farmers can return if they want. There will be lots of empty land that has been sitting fallow for years. I know it's not their first choice, but clearly one side won't stop. So let them have the farms. They won't know how to use them. They will starve. Problem solved. But no aid when the starving begins, right? Okay, I'm gonna stop that there. And this begs the question, if we are talking about white farmers live in South Africa and the assumption that black farmers will starve, what are we saying? What are we saying about our existence before all this happened? How did the African man survive? How did you cater to your needs? How did you cater to your tummy, to your stomach? You know, a lot of questions in here. And then the analogy of give them these farms because they won't know how to farm. And I get why they could be insinuating this, because we saw this happening in Zim. This happened in Zimbabwe, where, of course, okay, you have the lands, but people did not know what to do with these particular lands. But I feel like someone has said this whole Trump and Elon Musk's way of looking at Africa, maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's the call to action we all need in making sure that we unite. But obviously, as I said, there are a couple of other reactions, and I want to read you one reaction from Miguna, where he said, Mr. Elon Musk supports and facilitates Netanyahu, an international court indicted war criminal and murderer of more than 1,000 Palestinians and Zionists who have wounded, maimed, and displaced millions of Palestinian civilians. But he wants Malema, who has murdered no one, declared an international criminal and sanctioned. We must have the courage and moral outrage to condemn Elon Musk and his racist confederates who have thrived on white supremacy and plunder of Africa. I'm telling you guys, this is not a conversation that is bound to end today. If anything, this has actually opened a can of worms where people are like, by the way, why is it so hard for us to talk about land injustices in Africa and come to a conclusion? And we briefly touched on what happened in Zimbabwe, but can we also address Namibia in a minute? Because why are you telling me a simple Google search on who owns land, how much land is owned by Germans in Namibia, the results are the land, 70% of Namibia's farmland is owned by 2% Germans. What are we talking about, guys? Like, do the maths. How do you have 2% of an entire country's population owning 70% of the agricultural land in Namibia? What are we saying, right? And as I said, land injustice conversations are very triggering. And we also got to experience that when we covered our stories on conservancies, and you have one particular person, guys, I need you to mark this. You have one person owning land that is 4 times Nairobi. That is 4 times the CBD. One person owning land that is 4 times the CBD. And I know there's always the conversation of, well, but they got this land legally. Well, but they are supposed to be here. Well, but it's their right to be here. But what I experienced is it's the resentment in the local communities. It's how they look, at these lands from inside out. You're actually walking and you can take a 40 minutes walk and the land belongs to one particular person. And a story has been told that this actually used to be your ancestors' land. This land belongs to your community. To have you exposed to that level of discrimination, to that level of inequality, obviously it does something to you, right? And you have this whole idea of people coming up with crazy terms such as conservancies, people saying this is the reason we have conservancies here, because we are going to help the normal mwananchi. We are actually forming these conservancies here so that we can be able to help the local communities. And the help that these conservancies give to the local community is, number 1, a simple borehole. Well, we appreciate a borehole. Number 2, we are going to take 10 of your children in this community. We are going to offer them scholarship. But when you do the maths, what are you saying? How about you exit from this huge chunk of land that you own and you let the community members do what they have to do with it? And we have to stop normalizing the fact that the owners of these conservancies are supposed to be the one developing the communities. What is the role of the government in place? Why is it that we give such roles to individuals so that you can have people like British Army training in these conservancies and leaving money behind to the people who own these conservancies? Because like we said in that video, and guys, please go watch out 2 of the videos that we recently put out in this whole land injustice thing. You cannot tell me that we have allowed conservancies to exist in this country where they get tenders from a whole government, a British government, but that tender does not go to our own government, so it doesn't help our own people. And they train in these conservancies and they make deals with the owners of these conservancies, and then you're telling me this will not be a triggering point to someone? Absolutely. Someone is bound to be triggered. When we talk about Namibia being owned by 2% of German Namibians, what are we saying? What are we saying? That it's even become hard for the Namibian government to buy the land back and restore the ancestral land to its people, or restore that land for the sake of its people. It's even hard to buy that land back. For us to assume that these conversations will not happen soon is us turning a blind eye to something that is very sensitive, and it's just bound to happen very, very soon. I don't know what's, obviously to a huge extent, I might not be aware of what's happening in South Africa, but I'm aware that this particular land expropriation law is something that the people in South Africa have waited for so long. And we have someone like Trump who advocates for, independence, who advocates for people to be like, hey, stop relying on aid. Why don't you do something about your own country? So if you have someone like him telling people to be independent, doesn't independent also mean getting land that is not being used and developing it for public interest? And also I understand when we are addressing white settlers, it's also important for us to also address black elites who own hundreds and hundreds of acres of land. And I'm telling you guys, and I'm gonna call it, this is a conversation that will soon happen. Even here in Kenya, you have black elites who own such a huge chunk of land. Like I'm telling you, you could be driving and 20 minutes, you're like, this side ni ya nani, east side ni ya nani, a whole 20 minutes drive, and the land still belongs to one black elite. And people assume that these conversations will not catch up with them. I know these are very sensitive issues, and even talking about them is not an easy thing, but for us to be able to be equal, because as Malema said, his is not about do white people farm here or not. Him, it's about, can we be equal? Because why will you have 10,000 acres of land and here people can't even afford a 50 to 100 and think that's okay, that you can live in harmony with the members of that particular community? I think honestly now we are far-fetching. And I feel like Africa needs to bravely have conversations around land, because this is all we will ever have. We don't have places to be. This is the land. Africa actually feeds a lot of countries outside. The way we talk about Africa, the way we talk about countries such as Congo, Kenya, Namibia, South Africa, we like undermining the value of these particular countries. And I hope we are coming to that particular point where we realize that the whole world will not survive if Africa stops. I mean, we have to see ourselves for the value we offer and not the aid that we receive. They've made Africa such a mess that all we do is talk about aid, all we do is talk about which help are we getting, rather than what resources do we have and what can we be able to do with these resources that we have. So let me know what your thoughts are on this whole exchange between Malema and Elon Musk. Do you think Malema is actually advocating for white, I can't say that word, but do you think Malema is actually is he out of his senses, or is Elon Musk doing this to serve his own narrative? I would love to hear your thoughts on the comment section. And also let me know, what are your thoughts when it comes to the land matters in this particular continent, and what are some of the solutions that you think should be put in place to make sure that Africa continue existing as an independent continent and not a continent that receives orders left, right, and center. And as I said, we are looking into having conversation not just of white elites, but I think it's time we also had conversations of the black elites who own hundreds and of thousands of land in this country, and they cannot even account for it. All they say is, we bought it, we have the title deeds. But what does that mean? What does that mean, people? Leave your thoughts on the comment section. Bye.